This was my first time visiting the Gambia. I went for an event named Amplified 2025, which is a music event. But from the moment my feet touched the soil of Gambia, I felt an ancestral tug, a whisper that said, "Welcome home, come and remember." This journey wasn't about a vacation or me vlogging a travel destination. It was a calling, a pull back into the corridors of African history and African memory, the kind that lives beneath the surface of our modern lives, waiting for us to listen. I was staying in Serekunda, which is located in Banjul, Gambia. When I arrived at the Gambia National Museum, I thought I was simply walking into a building. But the moment I entered, I realised I had stepped into a time capsule, one filled with centuries of wisdom, creativity and resilience. I spent 1 hour inside, but honestly, I needed 3 to 6 hours to even begin absorbing everything that was written on those walls.
This structure where you are standing right now is known as Gambia National Museum. It was built by the British during the colonial era as a British club. This is the place where they normally come and enjoy themselves when they have rest or time. They come here, they play.
British.
They're the British, yeah. You know, they're the one who colonized us. Yeah. They come here, they play music, eat, drink, dance, and then later they dispatch to the various working places. Then later on, it became into a British council, library, and a parliament until February 1985, when it finally became as Gambia National Museum by the First Republic of the Gambia, Sadam Jawara up to date. This building was built in the year 1898. It's 127 years old now.
The Gambia was formally established as a British Crown colony in 1888, with the inland territories declared as protectorate in 1894. However, Britain's presence and control began much earlier in 1816, where they founded Bathurst, which is now Banjul. Every photograph, every artifact, every piece of carved wood, every ancient tool whispered stories that survived conquest, colonial censorship, and a deliberate erasure. I saw tools and weapons crafted before the time markers we call BC, knives forged with precision, garden tools shaped with intuitive engineering, medical instruments, swords, body coverings, ceremonial masks, and all coded symbols that once held spiritual, mathematical, and astronomical meaning. Yet these sacred creations were rebranded by the colonial powers as demonic, primitive, or unimportant, not because they lacked power, but because they carried too much of it. The colonizers deliberately burnt libraries, manuscripts, and sacred texts, destroyed entire archives documenting African sciences, governance, astronomy, medicine, and lineage, labelled African knowledge systems as superstition or barbaric. Missionaries and colonial officials systematically dismantled indigenous cultural centres. They burnt shrines, sacred temples, and places of learning. They forcibly replaced traditional education with missionary classrooms focused on obedience. Colonizers propagated the lie that Africa had no history worth keeping. They silenced the Gregos, traditional knowledge keepers. They disrupted intergenerational knowledge transfer and taught African children that their ancestors' wisdom was witchcraft or fiction. And it wasn't just physical destruction, but there was an epistemic violence, a stealing of the context of the land, dismantling worldviews and belief systems, and forcing Western frameworks of understanding onto African societies. The Gambia's story is not isolated. Across the continent, from Ethiopia to Timbuktu, from Benin in Nigeria to the valleys and kingdoms of Central and Southern Africa, the French, the Germans, the British, and others carried out campaigns of cultural destruction. They invaded royal courtyards, torched schools and libraries, burnt scrolls, manuscripts, and sacred temples. They looted masks encoded with knowledge. They seized drums whose rhythms carried mathematical language and dismissed all that they could not decode. Yet, despite centuries of attempted erasure, our memory has survived. In the soil, in the artifacts, in the rhythm of our drums, and the resilience of our people. Despite massive destruction, African knowledge survived oral traditions, the elders' whispers, and encoded memories in dance, rituals, and bodily practices. Secret preservation of cultural knowledge is what has happened. What I witnessed in the Gambia was both heartbreaking and empowering. It reminded me that African history is not lost. It is simply waiting for us to reclaim it.